Hi, I'm John Wilkinson with Premier Lighting and Controls, and today's Tech Talk is going to be about considerations when dimming LED light sources. And I'm going to be talking about dimming drivers by eldoLED, an Acuity company. I had a recent job dimming fixtures in a high school auditorium. We used a spec grade downlight, fixture had a brand name driver, the driver dimmed to 1%, and when the system was installed, the customer wasn't happy because he felt that the dimming was insufficient for the application. And that's one of the concerns about dimming LED versus incandescent lamps. We have two different ways to evaluate dimming. A light meter will typically measure an incandescent or even a fluorescent lamp, and we'll get a numerical calculation. But the physiology of the human eye, it impacts how we perceive dimming of LED lighting. The human eye works logarithmically, not the same as a light meter. I can remember as a kid going out to play hide and seek on a warm summer night. We are outside with the neighborhood kids. There's a full moon, not a cloud in the sky, and somebody invariably will say, gee, it is so bright out here you could read a newspaper. Well, what we have is, youth. There's ultimate light uniformity from the moon, and then even though we have low light levels, the physiology of the eye, the pupil enlarges to let in more light for the low-level light receptors. And even though we only have 1/10 of a foot candle, we can see very well. And this is perceived light, unlike measured light. Now let me demonstrate. I have a graph from the IES, and this graph shows the relationship between measured light and perceived light as measured by the human eye. The values on the left, the vertical axis, represent light measured by a light meter. The values on the bottom of the graph represent light levels as perceived by the human eye. You can see the curved white line in the graph, and that's the logarithmic way the eye perceives those light levels. And from the chart, if you look, you'll see that dimming to 10% is perceived as 30% light output. Dimming to 1% is perceived as 10% light output. And dimming to 1/10 of 1% is perceived as 1% light output. Now let me demonstrate. I have a device here that has two identical LED modules. On your left is an eldoLED EcoDrive that dims to 1%. On your right is an eldoLED SOLOdrive that dims to 1/10 of 1%. Now I turn those on, and I'll tip this back so you get a little better view. And I have a well-known manufacturer of a wall box dimmer that will dim both of these products. And you can see as I dim down, and eventually the dimmer on your left stops, and the dimmer on your right continues to dim to virtually, it's just barely on. And that's the difference between 1% and 1/10 of 1%. And by the way, the technologies of these devices, they operate on 0 to 10 volt, DMX, or Dolly protocols. So if you have projects like high school auditoriums, church sanctuaries, theaters, conference rooms, remember the SOLOdrive by Acuity's eldoLED, because that will get you to that 1/10 of 1% or dim to dark. For further information, please contact your Premier Lighting and Controls representative.